Now welcome everybody to this latest video 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be continuing with the series of going through some big mark questions taken from some high GCSE exam papers. Now as always, I'll include a copy of the questions for you to download, and I strongly recommend that you have attempted these questions just so you can test your prior knowledge. Now before we get started, here is just a little breakdown of what topics each of the questions that we go through in this video relate to. Now as I mentioned before, I strongly recommend you have attempted these questions before watching through this video, just so you can see what your natural ability does. And if you're obviously struggling with any aspects of these particular topics, obviously when I go through the answers, hopefully that should pick out any little mistakes that you may have made that made you unable to get full marks. However, if you're not sure about any of these topics, then I'll include a link to my contents page which goes through all of these topics in greater detail. So going straight into question 1, it says simplify fully, and here we've got an algebraic fraction. Now for this, what I'm going to do is just separate this into the 3 parts, in which, let me just get rid of that yellow, I can have this in pink, I can have the bottom bit in green. So looking at this, if we then look at factorising, now as you can see we've got part of an algebraic fraction and a single verb. So here if I just convert that over 1, then what I then need to do is then start factorising. Now I can factorise every single part. So for the first one, there's just going to be a single bracket as y is a common factor. So I could take a y out, in which I end up with that. Just have that over 1. Then for the next one, factorising the top, I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply together give me 21, added together give me positive 10. So that's going to be y plus 7 and y plus 3. And then for the green, you can hopefully spot that that's going to be a difference of 2 squares, so a dots. So that's going to be y minus 3, y plus 3. Now, as we're multiplying fractions, I'm multiplying the numerators together and the denominators together, which is going to leave me with y minus 3, y plus 7, and y plus 3, all over 1 times y minus 3, y plus 3. And then all that's left for me to then do is cancel the common brackets. So I've got y minus 3, y minus 3, y plus 3, y plus 3, and that's just going to leave me with lots of y plus 7, which I could leave my answer like that, or I could expand the brackets and have y squared plus 7y. So any of those 2 answers would be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 2, it says Zoe and Amy are playing a board game. They each have 1 disc and take turns to roll a fair ordinary dice. The player moves their disc clockwise, the number of places or number of spaces shown on the dice. The winner is the first player which disc lands on home on the end of their turn. And the question then says, here is the board after Amy's turn. Work out the probability that Amy wins within her next 2 turns. So here what we're looking for is that Zoe wins on a maximum of 2 turns. Now it's impossible for Amy to win, because if she rolls a 6, which is the biggest number, the furthest she's going to go is this point here. So Amy's definitely not going to win. So in order for Zoe to win, on the first throw, she can either roll a 3 and she wins, or she could roll a 2 and a 1, or she could roll a 1 and a 2. And they're the only possible combinations that we could have. So for her to roll a 3, well, there's only 1 3 on a dice, that's going to be 1 out of 6. For her to roll a 2 is 1 out of 6, then which is and a 1, which is going to be another 1 over 6. And for her to then roll a 1 and a 2, the probabilities are going to be shown. Now if I just simplify each of those probabilities, so that's going to be 1/6, that's going to be 1 out of 36, and what I was doing there, and 1 out of 36. So either for Zoe to win within 2 throws, she either throws a 3 or a 2 and a 1, or a 1 and a 2. Now the wording of that is really important, because add in probability means plus. So here we've got to do 1/6 plus 1/36 plus 1/36. Now if this was on a non-calculator, I would have to convert it to get the common denominator, so that'd be 6 over 36 plus 1 over 36 plus 1 over 36, which gives me a total of 8 over 36, which I can simplify that to give me 2 nights. And there is my final answer. Moving on to question 3, it says work out the value of cos 30 times cos sine 45 times tan 60 all squared. Now for this, exact values of trig. Now for this we just need to recall the actual values. So cos 30 is root 3 over 2. We've got sine 45, which is root 2 over 2. And we've got tan 60, which is root 3. Now for this, what we then need to do, now again, you may have unrationalized fractions for this, in which you could have 1 over root 2. So this could be 1 over root 2. That's probably going to stay the same depending if you remember it, and that's also going to stay the same. So you could have those alternatives. But ultimately, what we need to do is multiply all of those things together. I'm going to stick with the one that's in pink. So here, substituting all of this into this, we get root 3 over 2 multiplied by root 2 over 2 multiplied by root 3, and that's all squared. Now for this, what we want to then do is, there's a couple of ways in which we can handle this. I'm going to simplify what's in the bracket first. So remember, we're multiplying, so we can multiply surds with surds, numbers with numbers. So here I've got root 3 times root 2 times root 3, which is going to give me root 18, over 2 times 2 times 1, which is 4. And that's all squared. Now I could simplify root 18 as 3 root 2, which again is absolutely fine. But because I'm squaring, basically just square both the numerator and the denominator, and that's going to give me 18 over 16. And then all I then need to do is simplify this, which gives me 9 over 8. So there is one answer. Or I could write it as a mixed fraction, which is 1 and 1/8. Or I could write it as a decimal, which is unlikely with it being an exact value of trig and it being 4 marks. But if you are handy with your decimal fraction conversions, you could write 1.125. But again, as this is on a non-calculated question, I certainly would not type in all of those trig ratios and square the answer. Moving on to question 4, it says that a school play takes place each day from Monday to Friday. Here are the attendances on 4 of the days, or for all 5 days the mean attendance was 90. Work out the attendance on Friday. So for this, if we just start by writing Friday, and we just call that x, and x is what we're trying to find. Now to work out the average, what I need to do is add the 5 numbers up, divide it by how many days there are, and that will give me my mean, which in this case, they tell me that the answer is going to be 90. So for this, if I add 72 plus 83 plus 88 plus 97 plus x, I divide that by 5, and it should give me the answer of 90. So doing a bit of rearranging and a bit of adding, I get the answer of 340 plus x equals, now if I take the 5 over by multiplying by 5, that equals 450. So all that's left for me to then do is do 450 minus 340, which gives me an answer of 110. Moving on to question 5, it says Sam types a constant number of words per minute. He takes 8 minutes to type a report of 416 words. How long does it take for him to type an essay of 1,534 words? Give your answer in minutes and seconds. So for this, what I want to do first is work out what Sam's rate is per minute. So for this, if I do 418 divided by 8, that tells me that he's doing 52 words per minute. So then all that's left for me then to work out how long it's going to take for him to write 1,534 words is 1,534 divided by 52, and that gives me an answer of 29.5 minutes. Now remember that 29.5 minutes is 29.5 minutes, which in minutes and seconds is 29 minutes and 30 seconds. Then moving on to question 6, it says that a shape is made by joining a right angle triangle to a rectangle. Work out the area of the shape. So you can see that this is a compound shape, so if I label the two separate shapes A and B, so for this, in order to work out area B, Well, let's rearrange the labelling and let's call that A and that B. So area A is a triangle, and that's going to be base times height divided by 2. So the base is 30, the height is 16, divide that by 2, and let me just type that into my calculator. So 30 times 16 divided by 2 gives me an answer of 240. Now, in order to work out the area of B, I need to know what this length here is. Now to do that, what I need to do is use Pythagoras. So if I just take that triangle out, this length here is 16, this length here is 30, and I need to know what that length there is. So this is going to be x squared equals 16 squared plus 30 squared. So x squared equals 16 squared plus 20 squared, which gives me 30 squared, which is 1156. So x equals the square root of 1156, which gives me an answer of 34. So now I know the width of that rectangle. That area B is going to be 52 times 34, and 52 times 34 gives me an answer of 17368. And then all that's left for me to then do is add these two numbers together. So the total area is going to be 240 plus 1768, which gives me an answer of 2008 centimetre square. And there we go.